How's it going, guys? Welcome back to another video. Today we're going to talk about a thing that I think is probably not a very good thing for RuneScape, to be fair, but it's something that I'm sure is going to get a little bit of disagreement. Now, I think this is probably one of the biggest issues that RuneScape 3 has at the moment for 1, keeping players, 2, for players getting into endgame content, and 3, for misleading a lot of people that have got to endgame content and just can't take the next step into actually doing that content. Now, what do I mean? I'm talking about the combat style Revolution plus plus. I'm not talking about the normal Revolution, that's absolutely fine, and we'll talk about that later on as well, just so I can sort of determine the differences. But this video is going to be talking about how I think that Revolution plus plus just should never have been added to the game. It should never have been a thing. And personally, I think it does more bad than it does good. Bit of an interesting idea. Leave a comment down below before we get started on whether you think Revolution plus plus is good or bad. And then at the end, come back and let me know again. Just reply to the same comment. Let me know what you think. But that's pretty much it for the intro. So let's get started on this. If you enjoy, make sure you leave a like, subscribe to the channel, all that good stuff. If you are new, interested in more content from me, there'll be a shorts link somewhere in the description of the comments. Let's go. Alright, so let's start off with what exactly is Revolution plus plus, what is the difference between this and what is the difference between the standard Revolution and full manual. I suppose we can include that a little bit. So, the 3 different combat styles, right? Full manual, you need to do everything yourself. All the keybinds you'll have to press yourself. Nothing in the game will do anything automatically except for your auto attack. If you click on a target with full manual on, you will just auto attack, which basically means you'll just attack without an ability. You'll just use like a spell on magic, or you'll just fire an arrow or a bolt on range. This is generally seen as the best combat style to be able to use, purely because it gives you more control over your character and over timings and rotations and all that sort of stuff. No automatic thing that's like throwing your rotation off or using something out of order, that sort of stuff. However, it does take a lot of practice to get used to, and it is definitely not the only viable combat style because you do have Revolution. What Revolution does is it will give you a box on your action bar, and then everything inside that box will be automatically used when it is available. So if you have 5 abilities in a row, the first ability will be used and then it will use the second ability. But what it does is it will check if the first ability is available again before it uses anything else. So it will check all the previous abilities. If they're on cooldown, it will use the next one. So in order for the 5th ability to be used, all of the previous 4 abilities have to be on cooldown, or else it will use one of those abilities first. Now, this is fine because it does help a lot of people who can't use full manual, and I understand the struggle because I was the exact same. I never used to use full manual. The only reason I learned was because I kept dying at places like Telos and stuff, and I forced myself to learn it. With that being said, I played MOBAs and other MMOs for years, and it wasn't too big of a problem for me to pick it up. But Revolution itself is basically where you don't use any thresholds or ultimates or defensives inside your Revolution bar. You can have all of that on the outside of the Revolution bar, and you'll have your Revolution area only do basic abilities. This is fine. This works absolutely fine. You will likely do less DPS than someone on full manual because of specific timings on abilities, like using bleeds at the right time and all that sort of good stuff. But for someone who isn't fussed about getting the absolute optimal DPS out of things, Revolution is absolutely fine and it is not a problem. And I say this all the time, you can use Revolution in endgame bossing. You just can. It's been done by a lot of people. It is being done by a lot of people still, and it is not a problem. However, the problem comes in when you're using Revolution plus plus. And there's a reason I think this is so bad. The reason isn't that you just don't get as much DPS, because if you're not fussed, that is absolutely fine. You can lose the DPS, it doesn't matter. What Revolution plus plus will do is it will use everything that is inside that bar, and it basically uses the full bar, right? So you're going to be using all your thresholds, all your ultimates, all your defensives that you have inside the action bar automatically. Basically what people do is they will have their like Sunshine or Death Swiftness at the beginning, and then they'll have like their thresholds like Wild Magic, Asphyxiate, or Snapshot and Rapid Fire, or whatever it is with melee, and then they will have all the basics after that. And the reason they do this is because it will use all the basics because the other stuff aren't available yet because of Adrenaline, and then it will go back and it will pick up the other ones. But the issue with this is it will fire off thresholds before it can lose your ultimate. It will fire off the ultimate at the wrong time, and it just doesn't use things in a good, nice order. And then when you get to certain parts and certain bosses, you just don't have the DPS for it, right? This isn't even the biggest issue. This isn't why I think this is the worst update, but this is some of the issues and the core sort of problems with Revolution plus plus in the end game, because it will just make bosses a lot harder because you're not using things at the right time. Your timing is way off, and you basically just click the boss and wait until it dies, and you just hope for the best. It's kind of like It's kind of like just hoping that things all fall into place, when without a lot of research, a lot of timing stuff on purpose, it's just not going to happen. Alright, so now that we know what the difference between all of them are, and we know what the difference between Revolution Plus Plus is, enough to separate it from the other ones, basically the game is just playing all the combat for you, except for the order that you place the abilities in, right? We can move on to why I think this is such a bad thing for the game, outside of the fact that it just makes endgame bossing difficult. Alright, so specifically moving on just to Revolution Plus Plus, why do I think this is such a big problem for the game? Now, how many of you guys listening right now use Revolution Plus Plus? Be honest. Go down to the comments if you want to. Pause the video, scroll down, just leave a comment and say, yeah, I use Revolution Plus Plus. And then afterwards, just reply to it, edit it, whatever. Let me know. How many of you know what each and every ability that you have does? I know a lot of people who just use Revolution Plus Plus almost have no idea what all the abilities do. And I'm not saying you know that Snapshot does 2 hits. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the fact that you know that the second hit on Snapshot does more damage. I'm talking about the fact that you know that Rapid Fire actually has a bind shot at the beginning. I'm talking about the fact that you know that using things like Piercing Shot or Rack actually do more damage if the target is stunned. All these little extra effects that abilities have. I know a lot of you people use Revolution Plus Plus and no fault of your own, because this is why I'm going to be talking about the fact that I think this is the worst update that Jagex added to RuneScape 3. It's not your fault that you don't know this. It's because the game doesn't want you to learn it. It doesn't help you learn it. It doesn't push you to learn it. What is the point? You probably don't know that most of these effects, and you probably are losing out a lot of stuff because of this. So the reason that you're doing this is because when you start the game, Revolution Plus Plus is enabled. When you make a new account, the game automatically enables Revolution Plus Plus. This is an issue because as you level up your account, you unlock skills as you level up a combat style. So for example, if you just use range to begin with, as you progress and level up your range levels, you're going to unlock skills. As you unlock those skills, the game automatically slots those into the action bar for you, and you don't even read what they do, because why would you bother? You know that they're there, and all you need to know is that at some point, the game's going to use that. It doesn't tell you to read through what these abilities do. It doesn't make you want to understand how they work, because all you're doing so far is clicking on a boss and your character's automatically using all the abilities. At the beginning, you verse this big troll, right? And when you kill that troll, I think you only have about 3 abilities. I believe you're usually using melee at this point, but that's okay. And I'm fairly sure one of the abilities that you do have is Slaughter. Slaughter is a bleed, but it's also a threshold, so you need to use 15% adrenaline. You have to have 50% to be able to use it. And if you walk the target after you apply the bleed, damage increases significantly. I bet most people at the beginning don't know that, but they should know that, because if they didn't have Revolution Plus Plus on, when they unlocked an ability, the game said, great, you've unlocked a new ability, slot it into your action bar to be able to use it. Guess what people would do? They would read what the ability does, because they'd care. They'd want to know what the ability does, because it doesn't automatically appear on the random action bar that's already set up for Revolution Plus Plus to use everything for them. So far, in the combat at the beginning, all you're doing is clicking on a target, and you're noticing that you've got abilities that are being used, but they're being used for you. There's no reason to understand what they do. You don't need to put your mouse over it and read what it does, and you don't have to have any understanding for it. This is the issue all the way through to 99 combat and endgame. So many people will just be like, yep, okay, all my abilities are slotted. I've managed to get up to 80 in this combat style, and now I'm struggling to kill stuff because everything's slotted in a stupid way, because that's just the way that it's been unlocked and slotted for you. What do I do now? Surely now you go ahead, you read all your abilities, and you place them in order. No, do you hell? Why would you do that? Why would you do that when you've got the wiki, or you've got an option where you can right click on your action bar and press auto setup action bar? Wow, what a great time saver. Oh, Jagex, please. Combat is so important to this game, and you're just sort of giving it to them without any understanding, and it's just not good for the long term because they don't know what they're doing. You need to understand what abilities do, guys. You need to understand this, because when you get to endgame and you're trying to battle these bosses and you've got an automatic bar set up that just doesn't make sense, and you don't know why you're using abilities, understanding why you're using an ability rather than just, it does damage, doesn't it? That's just not gonna work. And when you get to the point where you want to do these endgame bosses, if you don't want to do it, if you just forever and ever just want to be someone who just does Slayer, doesn't do any bosses, just does God Wars 1, maybe God Wars 2, that's fine. You'll be fine. You'll be able to do that. That's not a problem. If you ever want to do things like Solak, if you ever want to do things like AOD, even Nex, even places like, I don't know, Telos or freaking Raksha, anything endgame, you're going to need a basic understanding of what your abilities do. You don't need to use all of them yourself. You don't need to use full manual. I always stand by this point. You do not need full manual. You do need to understand why you're using abilities though, because if you don't, you're just going to be firing stuff off and hoping for the best, and you're going to be struggling. Trust me, there's a lot of bosses that require you to use abilities at the right time, require you to do a DPS check, and if you don't understand what your abilities do, you're going to struggle to do a DPS check because you don't know what order to use them in. Normal Revolution using your basic abilities for you and then letting you time your thresholds and your ultimates is absolutely fine, because it's basic abilities. They're not that big of an issue. They're not wasted. It is not a problem. But when you've got a DPS check coming up and you've automatically used all your thresholds, they're all on freaking cooldown because Revolution's fired them all off when the boss is immune, you're screwed. There's just no. Goodbye. You might as well tap out and reset. But if you save them, you haven't used your threshold, you haven't used your sunshine or anything like that, as soon as that DPS check comes, you can still have that control of, right, I'm using my thresholds now, I'm using my sunshine now, if you just use an adrenaline potion, I can fire this off, and all it takes is you to use maybe 5 keys, probably about 5 keys, 1 for wild magic, 1 for asphyxiate, 1 for your sunshine, 1 for maybe detonate, 1 for an essence of finality keybind or a special attack. I can't really think of anything else that you'd absolutely need. Same goes with defensives. Using defensives at the right time is very important, and probably fact more important than anything else, because if you don't resonance the right hit, if you don't use debilitate or reflect at the right time, you can be dead. That's just the way it works. If you have those on your bar and it's randomly using debilitate throughout a fight, great, that's good for low level bosses because you just use it off cooldown. They don't have mechanics anyway. But when you get towards endgame bosses, you need to use them at the right time, or else it's just going to throw you off. It's just not going to be good. And if it's on cooldown when you need it, then rip, you're dead. Good luck. See you at death's office, mate. I'm there anyway. Anyway, we're kind of getting off point. The point is, Revolution Plus Plus doesn't let you learn the game. It doesn't let you learn combat. It just doesn't. It slots everything for you. It automatically does it for you, and it removes the fact that you ever needed to read and understand what your abilities do. I'm not saying that you need to know what every single ability in the game does inside out, because I probably don't know it either. What I'm saying is, you kind of want to understand the basics of it, and you kind of want to know that this ability does do more damage after a stun. You want to know which ability is most powerful than the other ones. You need to know when to use what ability, how they work, how to get the most out of it, and that's important. And all that takes is to read the tooltip. That's really all it takes. A little bit of understanding afterwards, of course, as well, but reading the tooltip is very important. Revolution Plus Plus takes that away. It automatically slots the abilities for you. I genuinely feel like this was a bad move to add this as at least as the default. If they want to keep it in there for the people who really just don't want to do anything else, and Revolution Plus Plus is actually not a bad idea if you want to AFK bosses. If you want to AFK places like God Wars 1, Revolution Plus Plus is amazing. In fact, it's great because it will automatically use the thresholds for you, right? It'll automatically throw all that away. You don't have to pay attention as long as you set it up in the right way. However, this is also for experienced players. For the people who can do bosses on Revolution Plus Plus, you've got experience in the game because you understand what your abilities do. You understand the order that they need to be in to get the most out of it. And you understand that the timing on them is probably going to be important, and you've placed them in that right place on purpose. For anyone else who is a new player to the game, Revolution Plus Plus is just not the way to go. If there's anything that Jagex needs to do, they need to keep Revolution on the basics maybe, and just make it only basics like it used to be, and just have it so that when you level up, you get all your basics automatically slotted inside your Revolution bar in a way that makes sense. And then when you unlock thresholds, when you unlock ultimates, it should tell you, it should give you an indication to go and slot that yourself, tell you that this is an ultimate ability you've unlocked. Do you want to slot it? It should give you that option. That way you will read the tooltip, you will know what that ability does, because when it just gets thrown onto the bar, until you actually see it doing anything, you don't have a clue what it does, because 9 out of 10 of you are not going to read it. But anyway, this is just kind of my thought on this. What do you guys think? Do you think that Revolution Plus Plus in this aspect for a newer player who wants to eventually get into endgame content, but they've spent the whole time just not really reading any of their abilities or anything like that, they've got a Revolution bar and they think that's how combat works, and it's just a big struggle. Like, you're not going to be able to do big endgame bosses with this stuff, and it's not your fault. It is really not your fault. Jagex hand you this straight away, and they automatically slot the stuff. It's like giving you all the ingredients for something that you want to cook. They basically make the whole thing, and all they do is tell you to cook it. Don't tell you how to cook it. You've never seen it before in your life. You don't know what the hell you're doing with it. You just whack it in the oven at like 250 degrees. You leave it in there for 20 minutes. It looks nice and golden brown. You take it out, you cut it open, and it's raw inside. Oh, who knew you were meant to slow cook it? So it's that sort of thing, right? They've given you all this stuff, and they've just not explained the thing. They've taken away the actual understanding of it, and that's my issue with Revolution++. I hope I've not ranted too much. I know what I'm like, guys. I understand fully well that I basically go off on tangents, and I kind of get a little bit into it, a little bit too much into it maybe, and I probably should script this stuff, but I don't like writing scripts. It's just not me, and I think some of you guys appreciate that as well anyway, because it's just more me. Anyway, guys, I hope that you enjoyed. I'm very, very interested in hearing what you guys have to say in the comments. Let me know, because I'm honestly, I love reading all your comments. Even if I don't reply to all of them anymore, I just don't have the time. It's just not physically possible anymore. But let me know in the comments. I will reply to as many as I can. If I get 20 minutes free, I will sit for 20 minutes and reply to all of them. But do you agree? Do you disagree? Is there a way around this that you can see that Jagex should implement? I'm pretty sure most of you guys will probably agree. And anyone who does use Revolution++, just let me know. Was this you at one point? Maybe you know your abilities now because you've been forced to read them, but did you go through a lot of the game or most of the game without understanding what most of your abilities do? Did any of you not even know that abilities had after effects as well, like doing more damage after the target's stunned and all that sort of stuff? Let me know. I'm interested as always, guys. Thank you all so much for watching, though. I really do appreciate it. If you did enjoy the video, if you did enjoy the video, make sure to leave a like on it as well. It always helps out. Subscribe to the channel if you are new, of course. Thank you so much to the channel members. You guys support the channel a hell of a lot, more than you probably realize, but honestly, it's absolutely amazing. I really appreciate it. Your names will be on screen now, of course, as always. If anyone else is interested in supporting the channel and joining the channel members, you also get some perks as well. So if you are interested, click the join button by the subscribe button, and it'll open up a little window with all the perks and stuff. You can have a look through there. Other than that, guys, I do have a second channel with short videos that I'm going to be putting up. As soon as I get back to live streaming, there'll be a lot more flooding into there. There'll be a lot of content going in, so do subscribe to that. There'll be a link in the pinned comment and in the description. But other than that, guys, thank you all so much for watching. I really appreciate it, and I will see you all in the next one. See you later, guys.